A successful businessman sits across from his wife at an elegant restaurant. She mentions feeling lonely in their marriage. His response is not comfort or concern, but a calculated smile that never reaches his eyes. "You are too sensitive," he says, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Remember what happened last time you had these episodes? Maybe you should see that therapist again." The woman's face crumbles. She apologizes, doubting her own feelings, her own reality. What she does not know is that she has just witnessed a master manipulator at work. A predator who feeds not on flesh, but on the human soul itself. This is the world of the narcissist. A place where reality bends to serve one person's image, where love becomes a weapon, and where the most dangerous predators wear the masks of successful, charming, even heroic figures. Tonight, we descend into the psychological labyrinth of narcissism. We will explore minds that see other humans not as people, but as objects to be used, discarded, and replaced. We will uncover manipulation techniques so sophisticated that even the most intelligent people fall victim to them. The narcissist sits in boardrooms, pulpits, and family dinner tables. They run companies, countries, and households. They are the puppet masters of human emotion, pulling strings most people never even know exist. But knowledge is power. Understanding is protection. And the journey we are about to take will forever change how you see the world around you. The mirror reflects only what we choose to show it. But what happens when someone becomes so obsessed with their reflection that they forget the world beyond the glass? What happens when that person gains power over others? The answers lie in the shadows of the human psyche, where empathy dies and manipulation is born. History remembers Caligula as the Roman emperor who declared war on the sea and made his horse a consul. But beneath the madness lay a pattern that would repeat throughout human civilization. Caligula believed himself divine, demanded worship, and saw his subjects as extensions of his own will. The year 37 AD marked not just the rise of a mad emperor, but the documentation of a psychological pattern that would shape empires and destroy civilizations. Caligula exhibited what we now recognize as malignant narcissism, the toxic combination of grandiosity, lack of empathy, and sadistic pleasure in others' pain. Fast forward to the 20th century. Adolf Hitler possessed an uncanny ability to charm masses while orchestrating genocide. Joseph Stalin eliminated millions while maintaining an image of the beloved father figure. These were not random acts of evil, but the predictable behaviors of narcissistic personalities given ultimate power. The ancient Greeks understood this pattern long before psychology existed as a science. The myth of Narcissus tells of a beautiful youth who fell in love with his own reflection in a pool of water. Unable to leave the image, he wasted away, consumed by self-obsession. But the myth holds deeper wisdom. Narcissus was cursed by the gods after rejecting the love of others. His self-obsession was not confidence, but a prison of his own making. He could never love anyone else because he was incapable of seeing beyond himself. This mythological insight proves remarkably accurate to modern psychology. Narcissists are not people who love themselves too much, but people who cannot love themselves at all. The grandiose image they project is a desperate attempt to fill an internal void that can never be satisfied. Throughout history, narcissistic leaders have followed predictable patterns. They rise to power by exploiting people's need for strong leadership. They maintain control through manipulation and fear. They fall when their grandiose schemes collide with reality. The Roman Empire crumbled under narcissistic emperors who cared more about their image than their people. The Third Reich lasted only 12 years because its narcissistic ideology was fundamentally disconnected from human nature. The Soviet Union collapsed when its narcissistic leadership became so removed from reality that they could no longer function. These historical patterns reveal a crucial truth: narcissism is not just a personal problem, but a societal threat. When narcissists gain power, entire civilizations suffer. Understanding this pattern becomes a matter of survival for democratic societies. The myth of Narcissus ends with transformation. The youth becomes a flower, rooted in one place, beautiful but unable to connect with the world around him. This transformation represents the ultimate fate of narcissistic systems. They become frozen, unable to adapt or grow until they wither and die. History offers us a mirror into the human condition. The reflection shows us that narcissism is not a modern problem, but an ancient pattern that threatens every generation. The question is not whether narcissists will seek power, but whether we will recognize them before they destroy what we hold dear. The narcissistic mind is a house of mirrors, each reflection more distorted than the last. To understand how these minds operate, we must first demolish our assumptions about what narcissism actually is. Picture a magnificent mansion with perfect landscaping and gleaming windows. Visitors are amazed by its beauty. But step inside, and you discover the truth. The mansion is hollow. The beautiful facade hides rooms filled with nothing but echoes and emptiness. This is the narcissistic psyche. The grandiose image, the apparent confidence, the magnetic charm. These are not signs of strength but symptoms of a profound psychological wound. The narcissist lives in constant terror that others will discover the emptiness behind the mask. The wound typically begins in childhood. A child learns that their authentic self is not acceptable. Perhaps they were praised only for achievements, never for simply being. Perhaps they were criticized relentlessly, learning that perfection was the only path to love. Perhaps they were alternately worshipped and ignored, creating confusion about their own worth. The child's developing mind makes a devastating decision. The true self is too dangerous to show. It must be hidden, locked away, replaced with a false self that can never be hurt or rejected. This false self becomes the grandiose image the narcissist presents to the world. But this solution creates a psychological prison. The false self requires constant validation from others to maintain its existence. Like a vampire that feeds on blood, the narcissist feeds on admiration, attention, and control. Without this constant supply, the false self begins to crumble, revealing the terrifying emptiness beneath. This explains why narcissists cannot handle criticism or rejection. These experiences threaten to shatter the false self and expose the wounded child hidden inside. The narcissist will go to extreme lengths to avoid this psychological death, including destroying the people closest to them. The tragedy deepens when we understand that narcissists are incapable of genuine love. Love requires seeing another person as a separate individual with their own needs, feelings, and desires. But narcissists can only see others as extensions of themselves, mirrors that reflect back their grandiose image. This is why narcissistic relationships follow predictable patterns. The narcissist initially love bombs their target, showering them with attention and affection. But this is not love, it is the narcissist falling in love with their own reflection in the other person's eyes. When the target inevitably fails to maintain perfect admiration, the narcissist feels betrayed. The same person who was once idealized becomes demonized. This split thinking, viewing people as either perfect or worthless, reflects the narcissist's inability to perceive others as complex human beings. The narcissist's emotional world is surprisingly simple. They experience only two primary emotions, shame and rage. Everything else is a performance designed to hide these core feelings. Joy, sadness, fear, love. These complex emotions remain locked away with the authentic self. Shame drives the narcissist to create the grandiose false self. Rage erupts when that false self is threatened. This emotional poverty explains why narcissists seem oddly hollow even in their moments of apparent triumph. They are actors playing a role, but they have forgotten who they were before the performance began. The architecture of emptiness creates a prison that traps not only the narcissist but everyone who becomes entangled in their web. Understanding this structure is the first step toward recognizing these patterns and protecting ourselves from their destructive power. The saddest truth about narcissism is that it represents the death of authentic human connection. The narcissist becomes a ghost haunting the life they might have lived, forever seeking validation for a self that does not actually exist. The most dangerous predators in the animal kingdom are not the obvious ones. The tiger's stripes warn potential prey of danger. The rattlesnake's rattle announces its presence. But the narcissist hunts with invisible weapons, leaving victims unaware they are being destroyed until it is too late. Gaslighting stands as the narcissist's most powerful weapon. Named after the 1944 film where a husband slowly drives his wife insane by making her question her own perceptions, gaslighting involves systematically undermining someone's sense of reality. The process begins subtly. The narcissist might deny saying something they clearly said, or insist that events happened differently than they actually did. When the victim questions these discrepancies, the narcissist responds with concern. "Are you feeling okay? You seem confused lately." Over time, the victim begins to doubt their own memory, their own perceptions, their own sanity. This doubt becomes a weapon that the narcissist can deploy at will. Any criticism or challenge can be deflected with a simple phrase, "You are being overly sensitive," or "You always remember things wrong." Love bombing represents the narcissist's recruitment strategy. They shower potential victims with overwhelming attention, gifts, and affection. The target feels special, chosen, uniquely understood. This intense experience creates a powerful psychological bond that the narcissist will later exploit. The love bombing phase serves multiple purposes. It creates a baseline of extraordinary treatment that makes normal behavior seem inadequate. It establishes the narcissist as the source of the victim's happiness. Most importantly, it creates a trauma bond. The victim becomes addicted to the intense highs that only the narcissist can provide. Triangulation involves bringing third parties into the relationship dynamic to create jealousy, competition, and confusion. The narcissist might compare their victim to an ex-partner, a colleague, or even a family member. "Sarah would never react this way," they might say, or "My boss thinks you are being unreasonable." This technique serves several functions. It makes the victim feel insecure and competitive. It prevents the victim from forming alliances with others who might recognize the abuse. It maintains the narcissist's position as the central figure in all relationships. The discard cycle represents the narcissist's ultimate cruelty. After months or years of manipulation, the narcissist suddenly becomes cold, distant, and critical. The same person who once proclaimed eternal love now treats their victim with contempt. This sudden shift is not random but calculated. The narcissist has either found a new source of supply or has grown bored with their current victim. The discard serves to destroy the victim's self-esteem while positioning the narcissist to return later when they need validation. Projection allows narcissists to avoid accountability by attributing their own behaviors to others. A narcissist who is cheating will accuse their partner of infidelity. A narcissist who lies constantly will call others dishonest. This technique serves both to deflect blame and to confuse victims about the true source of problems. The silent treatment weaponizes human need for connection. When narcissists feel criticized or challenged, they may withdraw completely, refusing to communicate or acknowledge their victim's existence. This punishment is designed to train the victim to avoid any behavior that threatens the narcissist's ego. These techniques work because they exploit fundamental human psychology. Humans are wired to seek connection, to trust those closest to them, and to maintain consistent worldviews. Narcissists turn these healthy impulses into vulnerabilities. The manipulation becomes more effective over time as the victim's self-esteem erodes. Each successful manipulation makes the next one easier. The victim begins to anticipate the narcissist's needs, walking on eggshells to avoid triggering rage or withdrawal. Understanding these techniques is crucial for protection. Manipulation loses much of its power when it is recognized and named. The puppet master's strings become visible, and the victim can begin to cut themselves free. But knowledge alone is not enough. These patterns are deeply ingrained and supported by powerful psychological forces. Breaking free requires not just understanding but courage, support, and often professional help. The narcissist's playbook is ancient, but its effects are devastatingly modern. In our interconnected world, these manipulation techniques can spread through social media, workplace dynamics, and political systems, affecting millions of people simultaneously. The woman sits in a therapist's office, tears streaming down her face. "I know it sounds crazy," she whispers, "but I cannot stop thinking about him. Even after everything he did to me, I still love him. I still hope he will change." This is not love. This is trauma bonding, one of the most insidious effects of narcissistic abuse. The victim becomes psychologically addicted to the same person who is destroying them. Trauma bonding occurs when periods of abuse alternate with periods of kindness or relief. The victim's nervous system becomes conditioned to associate the abuser with both pain and pleasure. Like a drug addiction, the victim craves the temporary relief that only the abuser can provide. The cycle begins with tension building. The victim walks on eggshells, sensing the narcissist's growing irritation. Then comes the explosion: verbal attacks, emotional withdrawal, or other forms of abuse. Finally, there is reconciliation, where the narcissist may apologize, show affection, or simply return to normal behavior. This cycle hijacks the victim's neurochemistry. During the tension phase, stress hormones flood the system. During the explosion, the victim experiences trauma. During reconciliation, the relief creates a powerful rush of bonding chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine. The victim's brain begins to associate the abuser with survival itself. Even when the conscious mind recognizes the abuse, the nervous system craves the familiar cycle. This is why victims often return to abusive relationships multiple times, despite knowing better intellectually. Learned helplessness compounds the trauma bonding. The victim discovers that nothing they do can prevent the narcissist's abuse. Their efforts to please, to improve, to change themselves all prove futile. Eventually, they stop trying to escape, even when escape becomes possible. This psychological state was first documented in experiments with dogs who received random electric shocks. When the dogs learned that their actions had no effect on the shocks, they became passive, accepting punishment even when they could easily escape. Humans in narcissistic relationships experience similar conditioning. They learn that the narcissist's behavior is unpredictable and uncontrollable. Their sense of personal agency erodes. They begin to believe that they deserve the treatment they receive. The erosion of self-esteem creates a vicious cycle. As victims lose confidence in their own perceptions and abilities, they become more dependent on the narcissist. This dependence makes leaving seem impossible, even when staying becomes unbearable. Isolation amplifies these effects. Narcissists systematically separate their victims from support networks. They criticize friends and family, create conflicts with loved ones, and monopolize the victim's time and attention. This isolation makes the narcissist's version of reality seem like the only truth. The victim's identity begins to merge with the abuser's expectations. They lose touch with their own preferences, goals, and values. They exist only to serve the narcissist's needs. This psychological death occurs so gradually that the victim may not even notice it happening. Recovery from narcissistic abuse is a lengthy process that resembles recovery from cult indoctrination. Victims must rediscover their own identity, rebuild their self-esteem, and learn to trust their own perceptions again. This process can take years and often requires professional support. The invisible nature of emotional abuse makes recovery even more challenging. Society recognizes physical violence as serious, but emotional manipulation is often minimized or ignored. Victims may be told to just get over it, or stop being so sensitive. This lack of social support compounds the trauma. Victims begin to question whether their experiences were really that bad. They may blame themselves for not being strong enough to leave or for being foolish enough to stay. The long-term effects of narcissistic abuse can include complex PTSD, anxiety, depression, and difficulty forming healthy relationships. Victims may struggle with hypervigilance, always scanning for signs of manipulation or abuse. They may have trouble trusting their own judgment in relationships. Children who grow up with narcissistic parents face particular challenges. They may develop their own narcissistic traits as a survival mechanism, or they may become overly compliant and people-pleasing. They may struggle with identity formation and have difficulty recognizing their own needs and boundaries. The ripple effects of narcissistic abuse extend far beyond the primary victim. Children, family members, friends, and colleagues all suffer collateral damage. The narcissist's manipulation tears apart social networks and destroys trust within communities. Understanding these invisible chains is crucial for both victims and those who love them. Recognition is the first step toward breaking free. But freedom requires more than understanding. It requires courage, support, and often professional intervention. The journey from victim to survivor is possible, but it is not easy. It requires rebuilding a sense of self that may have been shattered years or decades ago. It requires learning to trust again, both others and oneself. It requires believing that love should heal, not hurt. The notification ping echoes through the coffee shop. Dozens of people simultaneously reach for their phones, each hoping for that small hit of validation that comes with likes, comments, and shares. This scene, repeated millions of times daily across the globe, represents the narcissistic transformation of human connection. Social media has created the perfect breeding ground for narcissistic behavior. Platforms designed to connect people have instead created stages for performance, comparison, and manipulation. The constant stream of curated images and crafted messages feeds directly into narcissistic patterns. The selfie culture exemplifies this shift. People spend hours perfecting their image, seeking the perfect angle, the perfect filter, the perfect caption. The focus shifts from experiencing life to documenting it for others' consumption. Reality becomes secondary to the image of reality. Influencer culture has turned narcissistic behavior into a career path. Success is measured not by contribution to society or personal growth, but by follower count and engagement rates. The most successful influencers are often those who display the most narcissistic traits: grandiosity, exploitation of others, and lack of authentic emotion. The selfie culture exemplifies this shift. People spend hours perfecting their image, seeking the perfect angle, the perfect filter, the perfect caption. The focus shifts from experiencing life to documenting it for others' consumption. Reality becomes secondary to the image of reality. Influencer culture has turned narcissistic behavior into a career path. Success is measured not by contribution to society or personal growth, but by follower count and engagement rates. The most successful influencers are often those who display the most narcissistic traits: grandiosity, exploitation of others, and lack of authentic emotion. Dating apps have gamified human connection, turning potential partners into a series of profiles to be swiped through and discarded. This format encourages superficial judgments and disposable relationships. The abundance of options creates a grass-is-greener mentality that prevents deep connection. The rise of cancel culture reflects narcissistic splitting, the tendency to view people as either perfect or worthless. Complex human beings are reduced to their worst moments, then destroyed publicly. This binary thinking mirrors the narcissist's inability to hold nuanced views of others. Corporate culture has embraced narcissistic values in the name of success. Employees are encouraged to brand themselves, to network strategically, and to prioritize image over substance. The most successful leaders are often those who display confidence over competence, charisma over character. The gig economy has atomized work relationships, reducing human connections to transactional exchanges. Workers become independent contractors, competing against each other rather than collaborating. This system rewards narcissistic traits like self-promotion and exploitation of others. Political discourse has become increasingly narcissistic, with leaders who display grandiose behavior, lack of empathy, and exploitation of others gaining popularity. The democratic process itself becomes a performance, with sound bites and image management taking precedence over policy and governance. The cult of celebrity has created a class of people who are famous simply for being famous. These individuals often display narcissistic traits, yet they are held up as role models. Their behavior is excused or even celebrated, normalizing narcissistic patterns for entire generations. Reality television has made narcissistic behavior into entertainment. Shows reward participants for dramatic, manipulative, and exploitative behavior. Viewers become accustomed to these patterns, seeing them as normal rather than pathological. The attention economy has turned human attention into a commodity to be harvested and sold. Companies design products to be addictive, exploiting psychological vulnerabilities for profit. This system creates an environment where narcissistic behavior is not just rewarded but required for survival. Educational systems have shifted from developing character to building self-esteem. Children are taught that they are special and unique, but not necessarily taught empathy or social responsibility. This creates generations of people who expect praise without earning it. The therapy culture has been corrupted by narcissistic values, with some forms of therapy encouraging clients to focus exclusively on their own needs and desires. While self-care is important, this focus can slide into narcissistic self-absorption. Consumer culture promotes narcissistic values by suggesting that happiness comes from external validation and material possessions. People are encouraged to express their individuality through consumption, creating shallow identities based on brands and products. The decline of traditional communities has left people isolated and vulnerable to narcissistic manipulation. Without strong social bonds and shared values, individuals become easier targets for exploitation. The lack of accountability within communities allows narcissistic behavior to flourish unchecked. Technology has accelerated the spread of narcissistic patterns. Social media algorithms reward controversial and extreme content, amplifying narcissistic voices. The speed and scale of digital communication allow narcissistic manipulation to reach unprecedented numbers of people. The pandemic has exacerbated these trends, forcing people into isolation and increasing reliance on digital communication. The lack of face-to-face interaction has made it easier to maintain false personas and harder to develop genuine empathy. This modern epidemic of narcissism threatens the fabric of society itself. Democratic institutions depend on citizens who can compromise, empathize, and work together for the common good. A society of narcissists cannot maintain these democratic values. The solution requires recognizing these patterns and consciously choosing different values. We must prioritize authentic connection over image management, collaboration over competition, and empathy over self-promotion. The future of human civilization may depend on our ability to resist the narcissistic temptation and rediscover genuine human connection. The first step in protecting yourself from narcissistic manipulation is understanding that it can happen to anyone. Intelligence, education, and success provide no immunity. In fact, narcissists often target high-achieving individuals because they provide more valuable supply. The early warning signs of narcissistic behavior are subtle but consistent. Pay attention to how someone treats service workers, responds to criticism, and discusses their past relationships. A person who consistently blames others for their problems while taking credit for successes is displaying narcissistic patterns. Love bombing should trigger suspicion, not gratitude. When someone showers you with excessive attention, gifts, and affection early in a relationship, ask yourself what they might want in return. Healthy relationships develop gradually, with trust building over time. The narcissist's charm is superficial and performative. They may seem perfect initially, but this perfection is a red flag. Real people have flaws, make mistakes, and show vulnerability. A person who appears too good to be true probably is. Pay attention to how someone talks about their past relationships. If all their ex-partners are described as crazy, abusive, or inadequate, this pattern suggests the common denominator is the narrator, not the ex-partners. Trust your instincts when something feels off. Narcissists are skilled at making their victims doubt their own perceptions. If you find yourself constantly questioning your own reality or making excuses for someone's behavior, step back and evaluate the relationship objectively. Maintain your independence and support networks. Narcissists will try to isolate you from friends and family. Resist this isolation by nurturing your other relationships. Having outside perspectives helps you maintain clarity about what is normal and healthy. Set and maintain boundaries. Narcissists will push against any limits you establish. They may react with anger, manipulation, or withdrawal when you enforce boundaries. This reaction is actually confirmation that your boundaries are necessary. Do not try to change or fix a narcissist. This is not your responsibility, and it is not possible. Narcissists can only change through intensive therapy, and most refuse to acknowledge that they need help. Trying to change them will only exhaust you and provide them with more supply. If you are already in a relationship with a narcissist, safety planning is crucial. Leaving narcissistic relationships can be dangerous, as the narcissist may escalate their behavior when they sense loss of control. Seek professional help from therapists who specialize in narcissistic abuse. Gray rock technique involves making yourself as uninteresting as possible to the narcissist. Respond to their communications minimally and emotionally. Do not react to their provocations or attempts to draw you into drama. This technique can be particularly useful when you cannot completely cut contact. Document the abuse. Keep records of manipulative communications, incidents of verbal abuse, and patterns of behavior. This documentation can be crucial for legal protection and for maintaining your own sense of reality when the narcissist attempts to gaslight you. Understand that healing from narcissistic abuse takes time. You may experience withdrawal symptoms similar to those of drug addiction. This is normal and temporary. Seek support from therapists, support groups, or trusted friends who understand what you are going through. Learn to recognize your own vulnerabilities. What made you susceptible to narcissistic manipulation? Common vulnerabilities include people-pleasing tendencies, low self-esteem, and a desire to fix or rescue others. Working on these issues can help prevent future victimization. Practice self-compassion. Victims of narcissistic abuse often blame themselves for staying too long or not recognizing the signs sooner. Remember that you were targeted by a skilled manipulator. Having empathy and compassion made you vulnerable, but these are positive traits that should be preserved, not eliminated. Educate others about narcissistic patterns. Share your knowledge with friends, family, and colleagues. Many people are unaware of how sophisticated narcissistic manipulation can be. Your awareness could help protect others from becoming victims. Support policies and institutions that promote empathy and authentic connection. Vote for leaders who demonstrate genuine care for others. Support businesses that prioritize employee well-being over profit. Choose media that promotes thoughtful discussion over sensationalism. Recognize that narcissistic patterns exist on a spectrum. While not everyone who displays some narcissistic traits has narcissistic personality disorder, these patterns can still be harmful. Trust your instincts about people who make you feel diminished or exploited. Create environments that discourage narcissistic behavior. In your workplace, family, and social circles, reward collaboration over competition, authenticity over image, and empathy over self-promotion. Make it clear that manipulative behavior will not be tolerated. Remember that recovery is possible. While the effects of narcissistic abuse can be long-lasting, healing is achievable. Many survivors go on to form healthy relationships and lead fulfilling lives. Your experience, while painful, can become a source of wisdom and strength. The spell of narcissistic manipulation is powerful, but it is not unbreakable. Knowledge, support, and courage can set you free. More importantly, your freedom can serve as a beacon for others who are still trapped in the narcissist's web. If you or someone you know is struggling with narcissistic abuse, reach out for help. Contact a mental health professional, call a domestic violence hotline, or reach out to trusted friends and family. Remember that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. The ancient Greek myth of Narcissus ends with transformation. The youth who could not love anyone but his own reflection becomes a flower, rooted by the water's edge. This transformation represents both a warning and a hope, the possibility of moving beyond the prison of self-obsession. We stand at a crossroads in human history. The same technology that enables narcissistic manipulation also offers unprecedented opportunities for authentic connection. Social media platforms designed to exploit our psychology for profit could instead become tools for genuine community building. The rise of narcissistic behavior in our society is not inevitable. It is the result of choices made by individuals, communities, and institutions. We can make different choices. We can choose empathy over exploitation, authenticity over image, and connection over control. The first step toward healing our narcissistic culture is recognizing that we all have the capacity for both narcissistic and empathetic behavior. The question is not whether we are good or bad people, but which aspects of our nature we choose to nurture and develop. Empathy is not a weakness to be exploited, but a strength to be cultivated. It allows us to form genuine connections, to understand different perspectives, and to work together for the common good. In a world that often rewards narcissistic behavior, choosing empathy becomes a revolutionary act. The antidote to narcissistic culture is not self-denial or martyrdom, but authentic self-love. When we truly love ourselves, including our flaws and vulnerabilities, we no longer need to maintain a false image. We can show up as our real selves, creating space for others to do the same. Community healing requires individual healing. As we recover from our own narcissistic wounds, we become capable of creating healthier relationships and institutions. Our healing ripples outward, touching the lives of everyone we encounter. The children in our lives deserve particular attention. They are growing up in a world that often rewards narcissistic behavior and punishes vulnerability. We must model authentic connection, teach empathy, and create environments where their true selves can flourish. Educational systems must evolve beyond building self-esteem to developing character. Children need to learn not just that they are special, but that everyone is special. They need to understand that their worth comes not from being better than others, but from being connected to others. The workplace can become a laboratory for human connection rather than a battlefield for narcissistic competition. When organizations prioritize collaboration, authenticity, and employee well-being, they create environments where people can thrive rather than merely survive. Political discourse can be elevated beyond the narcissistic patterns that currently dominate. We can demand leaders who demonstrate genuine care for others, who acknowledge their mistakes, and who work collaboratively for the common good. Our votes and our voices can reward empathy over exploitation. The media landscape can be transformed from one that amplifies narcissistic behavior to one that celebrates authentic human connection. We can choose to consume content that inspires empathy, supports healing, and promotes genuine understanding. The journey from narcissistic culture to empathetic society will not be easy. It requires confronting uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our world. It requires giving up the comfortable illusions that protect us from difficult realities. But the alternative, a world where narcissistic manipulation becomes the norm, is far worse. Such a world would be characterized by shallow relationships, exploitative institutions, and the gradual erosion of human dignity and connection. The choice is ours. We can continue down the path of narcissistic culture, or we can choose a different way. We can choose to see each other as complex human beings deserving of respect and compassion. We can choose to build relationships based on mutual understanding rather than mutual exploitation. The light beyond the mirror is not about eliminating all self-interest or becoming perfect beings. It is about finding the balance between self-care and care for others, between personal growth and social responsibility, between individual expression and collective well-being. This light represents the possibility of authentic human connection, relationships where we can be vulnerable without being exploited, where we can show our true selves without fear of judgment, where we can love and be loved for who we really are. The narcissist's mirror reflects only illusion. But beyond that mirror lies the real world, full of imperfect people capable of genuine love, growth, and connection. This world is not always comfortable or easy, but it is real, and it is ours to create. Your awareness of these patterns is not just personal protection, it is a gift to the world. By recognizing narcissistic manipulation, by choosing empathy over exploitation, by building authentic connections, you become part of the solution. Share this knowledge with others. Help them recognize the signs of narcissistic manipulation. Support those who are healing from narcissistic abuse. Create environments where authentic connection can flourish. The mirror may show us our reflection, but it is in the eyes of others that we find our true selves. It is in genuine human connection that we discover our capacity for love, growth, and transformation. The narcissist remains trapped by the water's edge, obsessed with an image that can never love them back. But you have the power to walk away from the mirror, to turn toward the real world, and to build connections based on truth rather than illusion. The psychology of the narcissist reveals the darkest aspects of human nature, our capacity for manipulation, exploitation, and cruelty. But it also reveals something more hopeful, our fundamental need for connection, love, and authenticity. Even the narcissist's destructive behavior stems from this basic human need, twisted though it may be. Understanding narcissism is not about judging those who suffer from it, but about protecting ourselves and others from its effects. It is about recognizing that behind every manipulative behavior lies a wounded human being, while also understanding that we cannot heal others at the expense of our own well-being. The journey we have taken together through the labyrinth of narcissistic psychology was not meant to create fear or paranoia, but to provide knowledge and understanding. This knowledge becomes your shield against manipulation, your compass for healthy relationships, and your gift to others who may be struggling in the darkness. If this exploration has resonated with you, if you recognize these patterns in your own life or the lives of those you care about, know that you are not alone. Millions of people around the world are waking up to these realities, choosing healing over harm, authenticity over image, and connection over control. The stories of those who have broken free from narcissistic relationships inspire us all. Their courage in facing the truth, their strength in rebuilding their lives, and their compassion in helping others demonstrate the resilience of the human spirit. Take this knowledge and use it wisely. Share it with those who need it. Create spaces where authentic connection can flourish. Choose empathy in a world that often rewards exploitation. Be the light that helps others find their way out of the narcissist's maze. The mirror reflects only what we bring to it. But beyond the mirror lies infinite possibility. The possibility of genuine love, authentic connection, and a world where every human being is valued for their true self rather than their performance. This is our choice. This is our responsibility. This is our hope. The psychology of the narcissist reveals the shadows of the human heart, but it also illuminates the path toward the light. Walk that path with courage, compassion, and the knowledge that you are not alone. The mirror may be seductive, but reality is where life truly happens. Choose reality. Choose connection. Choose love. If this video has opened your eyes to patterns you recognize in your own life, please share it with others who might need this knowledge. Subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into human psychology, and remember, understanding these patterns is the first step toward freedom. Your awareness can protect not just yourself, but everyone in your circle. The narcissist's power lies in secrecy and confusion. By bringing these patterns into the light, we rob them of their power and create a safer world for everyone. If you or someone you know is struggling with narcissistic abuse, please reach out for professional help. Healing is possible, and you deserve relationships that honor your authentic self.